On today's episode of What the Hell is Sarah Making Now, we're going to make some potato and leek soup in a big batch. I went to the Independent and these 10-pound bags of white potatoes were on for $2, and these leeks are local, so they're out now, and that's what we're going to be doing because it's going to be a cheap meal and it's going to give me a ton of soup for the winter. So to prepare these leeks, I need to wash them, obviously, but we don't want to throw away this part and up of the leeks because we can use it to flavor our stock. They don't taste the greatest putting them into soup because they're really fibrous and sometimes they're really tough. So I just like to wash them on their own, and then once they're washed, we'll add them to our stock. So with the rest of the leeks, we're just pretty much going to chop off the end here. It's a little tough to use too. And then I like to cut it down this way, flip it over, and then we're just going to chop it. Go in that pile. Okay, then what we're going to do is soak this in sink full of water, clean them out really well, and this is what's going to go into our main soup with the potatoes. See, this is what we're trying to get out, all this dirt that hides in there underneath. It gets in between every single part of a leek, so that's why we got to immerse them into water and clean them out. You can see all the leeks are in this water. We're going to stir them around quite a bit. Then we're going to throw them into a colander to strain them, rinse them again, and hopefully we've got all the dirt out. So the leeks are in the colander, just getting the rest of the residue of the water and any other further dirt out after we've rinsed it. I've got potatoes soaking just to wash them. I'm not taking the skins off these. They're white potatoes. The skins are very thin on them, and who doesn't need more fiber in their diet? Plus, I generally like more rustic soup. So this will be pureed. So really we're just getting rid of nutrients that we're not going to really feel or have a texture issue with anyway. So then we have some onions that a friend of mine gave me. So it's going to be from their garden. And then I'm using garlic, but I tend to like to use this one. It's from Kirkland. It's a California garlic, so it's not Chinese garlic, which is great. It's already chopped up. And I just find this a way more consistent product than buying fresh garlic. I do like fresh garlic if I'm baking it or I'm making brie or eating it on its own, but I find that this gives me a more consistent product when I use it pretty much in everything that I cook. I like to make my own chicken broth whenever I'm doing a roasted chicken. So whenever I do that, I don't thicken it or anything. I just throw it into one of these containers and I put it into my freezer. So I can use actual homemade fresh chicken stock for when we're making soups, or if I'm wanting to make a gravy, or really anything that requires chicken stock. So I'm just adding a few into here, and I'm probably going to enhance this with some either Better Than bouillon or whatever chicken bouillon I have in the cupboard. Typically, you can make the soup from just bouillon or just broth out of a container, like Campbell's or whatever you want to use. I just prefer to do homemade because it tastes better. Plus, if you know me, you know I don't like wasting stuff. So if you can make something out of something you're just going to pitch in the garbage anyway, you might as well do it because that's ultimately free food, or you'd be throwing away food. And I'm not for any of that. So hence the reason, once I get all the water and other stuff into here, I'm going to put this. I'm going to put the scraps from my onions that I'm going to peel into this as well. It's going to fortify that stock and it's going to make it 10 times better. So I'm just finishing up adding the rest of the water to the stock that was already in there. I've put in about 5 liters of water. I'm going to turn this on, let it simmer for a little bit, let those defrost kind of in the stock, and then we'll start adding the other things that we're going to flavor it with. And while we're letting that simmer, we're going to cut up all of the onions and all of the potatoes and get that ready. Just going to put these onion skins in with the rest of the leek scraps to put into our stock. Cutting up the onions, you want to kind of just rough chop them into bite-sized pieces. Same with potatoes. Try and cut them pretty consistently so that they cook evenly. So I finished cutting all the potatoes, tried to keep all of them relatively the same size. I'm just going to put them back in the sink and put them under water, fresh clean water. This will keep them from going brown until we're ready to use them. This is a good hack for really anytime you're using potatoes. If you're doing mashed and you have to make a bunch of potatoes, keep water on them until you're ready to use them and then they won't go brown. So I had mentioned I'm not going to skin these. Their skins are thin. If you're using yellow flesh, the skins are thin too, so you don't really need to peel those either. If you're using russets, I would definitely advise peeling them. Okay, everything has melted down into a liquid now, so I'm going to add my bouillon cubes, and I'm going to add my scraps just into it, just like that. And I'm going to turn the heat up on this a little bit, just to get it to a quick boil, and then I'm gonna let it simmer. Probably, I mean, you can decide on the flavoring, but I like to let my broth simmer for like at least an hour. You could do a shorthand version of this and not do it for that long, but I like really potent Leek flavor. So that's what we're gonna do. To start the aromatics, what I'm gonna do is put in a bunch of butter, because love butter. Salted butter is the best. If you want a lower fat version of this soup, don't put butter in it, you just use olive oil. I'm gonna add a little bit of olive oil as well. I use this brand, it's my favorite. It's a light flavor and it tends to cook really well. So I'm literally just gonna add a little bit to the bottom of that so that when the butter melts down, it's not sticking to the bottom of the pan. And when I add my garlic and onions and leeks, they'll cook evenly. I'm gonna melt this down. I'm gonna put it on a low just to get it started. And then once it's melted, we're gonna add all of our aromatics. Now that the butter is mostly melted, I'm gonna add the different aromatics into it. I'm gonna put garlic and onion in first, just to brown them a little bit, and then I'll add the leeks in to soften them up. So the onions have been sauteing for probably 3 or 4 minutes. They're getting a little translucent. That's exactly what we want. Then we're gonna add the leeks in, all of our cut leeks. And we're gonna let this simmer, not boil or anything, but we're gonna let it simmer for about 15 minutes, just until those leeks loosen up. And then we're gonna take this off the burner. I'm gonna let it sit to the side because I still have to do the potatoes. They get cooked in the broth, but I'm just waiting for the broth to get done steeping. This is what we want the leeks to look like. They're a little translucent, still green. We're gonna remove them from the heat and wait for the broth to be done. Here I'm just straining out all of the scraps from that broth and infusing it into the leek and aromatic stock pot. Just adding the potatoes to cook into the stock. Once they fall off of a fork, when you poke them, they are ready to go. A little bit of thyme. Just adding a little bit of pepper and a little bit of salt. I do this before I puree. I don't have any fresh, so dried is fine. So that we can incorporate it a little bit better. Too, because we're making a lot of soup, and it wasn't going to boil enough in the other 2 pots. So I've got 2 huge pots going of soup. Taking the potatoes out now, and I'm going to puree them with some of the stock. Just makes it move easier in the food processor. Just running these through the food processor until they're a nice smooth consistency. So I'm done pureeing the soups. There's a lot. Now I'm just gonna add some salt, pepper, and probably a little bit more thyme just to taste. I've already tasted this one, so I definitely know it needs a little bit more salt. And this one does too, so I'm gonna do that. Generally, I do like to use fresh ground pepper, but since this is going in the freezer, I'm not going to be eating it right away. What I'll do is I'll just put some ground pepper into this, and then when I reheat the soup, I'm going to put fresh cracked pepper into it. So this is just like a flavoring. And a little bit of thyme. And we'll mix this in and see how it tastes. All right, tastes good. So I'm going to mix the two of these together just so we have a consistent soup. In case one tastes a little bit different than the other, this way it'll make it consistent in all of the containers we're going to use. Well, we couldn't get that any more full than it is. This is normally where I would add cream to it, but I am freezing it, and it's not really necessary to do it right now. When I reheat it, I'll probably add cream to it. I also don't have any, so we're just going to do that at a later time. Using these 1 liter deli containers, I'm probably going to use some half liters too, just to put the soup into. The half liters I like to use because my grandma and my stepmom generally don't have as much freezer space as I do, so and they don't eat as much as we do. So putting them in the half-liter deli containers is perfect for them. Okay, well, I got about 15 liters of soup. That's the equivalent of about 30 meals. The amount I paid for this, so it was $2 for the 10-pound bag of potatoes. The leeks were $5. I used about $3 worth of butter because I only buy butter when it's on sale. Garlic and spices. The chicken stock was homemade from broth that I had left over from drippings and bones of a previous meal. And I just happened to put it in the freezer. So we have all of these meals, 30 meals, for $12. I think that's pretty reasonable. To get these ready for freezing, all I'm going to do is stir all of them probably like once every 10 minutes just to cool them down. You could use an ice bath for this too, and I could have done that with the pot, but unfortunately I don't have that much ice in my freezer. So I'm going to do this until they hit about room temperature or close to, and then I'm going to stick them in the fridge downstairs overnight just to get them to that cool temperature. I'm going to label and date them. I will probably put a made on date, as really anything in the freezer, as long as it stays frozen, it doesn't really go bad as much as it gets freezer burnt, or it doesn't taste that good, or the nutrition does it goes in decline pretty much after a while. But it's usually still safe to eat. It's just and we don't have any meat in this besides the broth, so it should hold up pretty well, and we didn't put any dairy in it. So I'll just have to make a note on these that I'll have to add cream once I thaw them out to eat them. And that's potato and leek soup.